The following program is for mature audiences only. Football talk shows, most of them sound like this. Blah, 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 blah. Not this one. That's because it features the former director of college scouting with the Chicago Bears. He worked on the staff that drafted, the likes of Devin Hester, Olin Kreutz, Lance Briggs. He's the man who takes shit from absolutely nobody. He's Greg Gabriel. Gabriel joins longtime Chicago sports reporter David Schuster. And this is, accordingly, Gabriel Schuster Talk Bears.
And welcome into the Gabriel Schuster podcast. I'm David Schuster, and that handsome man to my right here on the screen. This is Greg Gabriel. And Greg, apparently they come cheaper by the half dozen. Losses, that is, because the Bears' losing skid has now reached 6, and the fans' tolerance for everybody's scalp up at Hallis Hall, I think, has reached a boiling point. What are your initial thoughts on the losing skid in yesterday's game?
Well, I don't know if you saw my tweet, but my tweet said, they don't make this stuff up. It's hard to take. That was the game they had. And I'm not going to put, I saw one writer, put all the blame on Mitch. It wasn't on Mitch. I mean, Mitch got strip sacked on that one play. That was a hell of a defensive play by Romeo Aquara. Same time, it was a bad play by Affetti. Trying to block him, he opened up his hips. He gave up the edge, and Aquara was able to get his long arms in there and strip the ball to prevent a throw. But it shouldn't have come down to that. The defense, they give up, a 97-yard drive or a 93-yard drive in about a minute and a half, and maybe even less than that, 5 plays, something like that. That's unheard. This defense was the heart and soul of this football team most of the year. The last 2 games, the defense has been terrible, and that's what the story is. The offense is actually coming on, not good enough for all of us to really want. Still, they put up 30 points. They controlled the ball. They've run the ball better in the last 2 weeks than they have all year. And now it's the defense that's given up plays, and I don't understand why.
All right, first of all, before we get into anything else, a little broadcasting tip. I would move your microphone thing away from your little tassels because it's rubbing up against the microphone, and we can hear it. We can actually hear your heartbeat, and it's moving at a rapid pace. Talking about the Bears. So try and move your microphone away from everything
Okay,
else.
How's that? I'm going to hold it like this.
Actually, that's much better, to be honest with you. Try and keep it
Okay.
away from everything else. Anyway, today is December 7th, Monday. We're recording this on Monday, the day after the Bears lost. December 7th, as we all know, is Pearl Harbor Day. 79 years today, Greg, the anniversary of what FDR called a date which will live in infamy. Well, yesterday is December 6th. I won't say that it was a date that will live in infamy, but, I'll say it again. After yesterday, I think, and it was probably to the breaking point already, the fan base, and I know you say the fan base is not ultimately what's important here, but, maybe to the McCaskies it is. Who knows? I think the fan base has reached its boiling point, and they want everybody. In fact, the Sun-Times article, who was it? Rick Morrissey this morning said, fire everybody. But actually,
I tell you what, that's what they do in Chicago, and I don't
do.
That's bullshit to me. Fire everybody. Okay, then what are you going to do? You're going to start all over again?
Yeah,
that's the history of sports in Chicago. Let's fire everybody and start all over again. That's not how you end up winning football games. I'm sorry, or in any sport. I don't care what sport it is. But the answer isn't fire everybody. The answer is fix what's wrong.
Well, but how do you fix it? I mean, maybe you have to fire somebody to fix it.
Well, there may be some people sorry about that, guys. There may be some people that lose some jobs. That's not for you and I to determine. But, the season has been a disappointment. The last 7 weeks have been a total disappointment. But to just call for everybody's head, I just think is ridiculous. That's the easy way out.
It is
Instead of look for solutions because that's not solving a problem. That's creating another problem. Okay, you bring in another general manager and you bring in another head coach, and now you're all high because they hired somebody. Somebody's going to piss and moan and bitch about whoever they hire, whether it's the GM, the coach, or both, and they're still going to be complaining. So it's fix what's there.
Yes.
That's my thought anyway.
Okay, but do you trust the people who have made the problem, the people to fix what is there? That's the real question here, Greg.
It's a great question, and I don't know if I have the answer. You've got to have those people got to look at themselves, and I'm not sounding like Matt Nagy last week. They got to look at themselves and look at the decisions they made and why those decisions were made. And we're talking, Ryan Pace here in the personnel department. Why did they bring in certain people, pay him a certain amount of money? Now, I'm not going to say if Fetty was a bad signing. They signed him for 1 year. And overall, his play hasn't been that bad. And he's played probably better at tackle than he's played at guard. He had a bad play yesterday. There's not a football player in America that doesn't have a bad play. But the overall play, this is a patchwork offensive line that they've had. You got a guy who's only played 2 games at right guard, was playing left guard and as a backup. You got he was a free agent coming out of college. You got another free agent, Mustafer, starting at center. You got Cody Whitehair, who was playing center, and he's playing left guard. Nobody's playing where they're supposed to be playing, yet the offensive line has played better in the last couple games. So who's that a credit to? I guess that's a credit to the players, and it's a credit to Juan Castillo, the offensive line coach, because he's made it work.
I would agree with that. All right, here's another part of the equation that's part of the problem, though, Greg. And you talk about the offensive line, and it's been patchwork. And yes, this is a strange season, and obviously with COVID, it hasn't been easy to change the offensive line overall. But if you go back during Ryan Pace's tenure, has he drafted anybody in the first round to fix either that offensive or at times defensive line? The answer is no.
No.
You got to keep going back. As much as I have problems with Matt Nagy, I have much more problems with Ryan Pace.
Well, Ryan Pace gave up 2 first-round picks to get Khalil Mack.
And I don't think that's a good trade now either.
No, I don't agree with that. I don't. Okay. The guy's a difference maker in the league.
Well, he hasn't been lately. That's for sure.
Okay, but it's sometimes injuries play into it. He's still a dominant force in the league. All you got to do is look at what the offenses they're playing against are doing to try to stop him. They know how good a player he is. Okay, and they're trying to take him out of the game. The problem is you're not getting help from the other side.
Okay,
that's the problem.
Who got Robert Quinn and gave him all that money?
Okay, that's on Ryan Pace in the pro department.
Who traded up to get Mitch Trubisky?
That's on Ryan. That's on Ryan Pace too. But you know what?
Monumental mistakes.
Yes.
Fireable offenses. Period.
Okay.
That's the way I feel. And to be honest with you, you know what? What's really telling to me, Greg? And I think maybe, just maybe, this will hit home with the McCaskey family. And you saw this, and you knew all these former players. The Bears' former players took to social media after yesterday's game and lambasted Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. I'm sure you saw that, and I think that really.
In all honesty, I haven't been on Twitter as much.
Okay, let me
this year as I usually am, but yeah, I saw some of it.
All right, let me read.
Forte was one of the.
Oh my God, let's start with Matt Forte. I mean, right to the point. Quote in his Twitter account yesterday: "Just throw the whole offensive way. Let me try that again. Just throw the whole offense away, coaches included, and the general manager." Football starts in the trenches. Everybody knows that. Matt Forte is a well-respected former player up at Hallis Hall. That will hit home with the McCaskey family.
Probably will. And
wasn't the only one, by the way.
I mean, George has a way of listening to the fans. I can't speak for George. None of us can. but George has a way of listening to the fans, and he may be listening to other players too. So maybe they will going to make changes. I saw one tweet, a guy put out a tweet, and he said, well, the way I hear it, there's going to be changes made as soon as this week. No, there's not.
No, there won't.
That has never happened.
Right.
Since I've been here for 20 years now. They don't make changes in the middle of the season.
No.
In fact, I made, I remember 2003, we went out to San Francisco and just got killed in the opening game. You might have even been out there. Do you remember that game?
Yes, I do, actually.
I think we lost by about 40 or something like that. I did not go to the game, but I was in Jerry's office the next morning. Might have even been like 5 in the morning when the plane landed from San Francisco. I was like, we got to make a change now. And Jerry said, no, we can't. We got to be cool about this. And, they're not going to do it now. Could they? Yeah. But what purpose does it serve?
Well, it's interesting, though, because yesterday was the third example this season. There have been 3 franchises that fired their coaches so far this season, Houston, Atlanta, and Detroit. And I don't know, maybe it's just ironic, Greg, but all 3 teams the following week won their next game. Maybe that's just, irony. I don't know.
Okay, now, good point. What do you want to do? Win a football game or take care of the future? What's more important?
Both.
Yeah, you want to do both, but
the future.
You don't know who the head coach or the GM is going to be in Detroit next year. You don't know who the head coach and the GM is going to be in Houston next year. In Jacksonville, they fired the GM. The coach is going next. They're just letting him stick around to the end of the season. Nobody knows who that's going to be. And until you have those answers, so what if you lose by winning right now? Now you're better off losing. I hate to say that, but
of course you're right about that. All right, former players, Kyle Long ripped the crap out of the Bears during and after yesterday's game. Your buddy Lance Briggs said during the fourth quarter, Nagy's going to Nagy. He was right. And Jerry Azuma said, I deserve better. You deserve better. We all deserve better. Everybody deserves better than this. What a damn joke. And then he had about 20 exclamation points right after that. So, again, what I've noticed over the years is that when former players in this organization, of which the McCaskies do take a lot of, they listen to us, what I'm trying to say. When those players speak up, potentially some action might occur here. So we'll see. But yesterday was another low point.
I can't disagree with you on that. It's where do you go? Are we going to start talking about, okay, who's going to be the next GM? Who's going to be the next head coach? Well,
Not today.
I know. I know who my favorite was for the head coach a long time ago, and he should have been hired a while ago. And why he's not a head coach is beyond me, but I guarantee he'd be a goddamn good one.
Who are we talking about?
Dave Tobe. End of discussion.
All right. Well, you're 100% right. As bad as that mistake was by Trubisky at the end of the game yesterday, and we'll talk about that as we got into yesterday's game, the defense was horrible. 460 yards they allowed. They were terrible on third down as the Lions were 6 of 11 on third down. Stafford, who I know you're not a big fan of, but yesterday he looked all pro at times against the Bears.
Oh, yeah. 27 of 42, 402 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was. That might have been his best game of the season.
Yeah, I'm looking at this also, Greg. It's funny how things change pretty quickly in the NFL sometimes. After week 6, okay, the Bears led the division. They were 5-1. Green Bay, of course, had played one less game at that point. They were 4-1. Detroit was 3-3. Minnesota, and we thought their season was over at that point. They were 1-5. 6 games later, all losses by the Bears. Green Bay has been 5-2 since then. That week, Green Bay is now 9-3 overall. Minnesota has won 5 out of their 6 games. They're now in second place in the division and at least in the playoff race at 6-6. The Bears in Detroit are 5-7. So the Bears have gone from first place in the division to last place in the division during this losing streak. Doesn't take much for that to happen in the NFL, does it?
No. Just look at the NFC East.
No one's won anything there.
I saw a thing this morning that said, well, are the Giants going to cause problems in the playoffs? The Giants are coming on at the right time, and that win for them yesterday, I know we're going off topic here, but we're better off topic than on topic, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, they go out to Seattle and they beat a damn good Seattle team. That might have been the upset of the week. Might have been the upset of the month.
Yeah, it makes me wonder about Seattle, but we'll talk about the NFL in just a moment. Let's play a real quick cut here from the head coach, because Matt Nagy just met the media within the last 20 minutes or so. And for all those people who were hoping, wondering, is Matt Nagy done? Is he going to resign? Is he going to be fired? Here's Matt Nagy just a short while ago at his press conference.
Coming out, losing the game is number one. To lose the game is what we can't have happen. And I think our guys understand that, but they also realize that what we have ahead of us here with the 4 games, and the only thing we can do is keep giving it everything we got to get that win and to stop this slide that we're in.
All right. So bottom line is he's not going anywhere. I'm just wondering, because you've been up at Halas Hall after some bad losses, Greg. What kind of discussion is had, and where does it occur between the general manager and the head coach, in this instance, Pace and Nagy, because they're obviously joined at the hip? How does that work after a game like yesterday?
Well, they always meet after a game. The coaches are given time to go over the film. GM's going over the film too. They're all taking notes, and then sometime after that, and they might not have done it yet because it's still, before noon, the GM and the head coach will meet. Now, in saying that, was Matt Nagy even at Halas Hall? There's an NFL directive for the rest of the season. All facilities are closed on Monday and Tuesday, unless you're playing on a, Monday night, and I think there's a Tuesday game this week. So the players can't be in there. Can the coaches be in there? I don't have the answer to that. And how the hell, unless you're on a Zoom call all day, how the hell do the coaches game plan on a Monday? That's when you do all your work for your game planning. Is you get done with the game by noon on Monday with the previous game, as far as grading your players, etc. If you lose, you generally meet with the players and go over the tape. You can't do that because of the NFL restrictions. And then you go on to next week and you start your game planning, reviewing the film. A lot of your assistant coaches have already done preliminary work. They're a week ahead. The pro department's a week ahead. But with these facilities supposedly being closed, and I don't know if that means being closed just to the players or being closed to the coaches too. I don't know how the hell they get their work done.
I don't know either, but you know what? Maybe they meet at the Lake Forest Oasis on the tollway. It's pretty close by. I have no idea how they're.
Or the old Halas Hall over at Lake Forest College.
Oh, I used to love that place. In the good old days. Anyway, let's go through yesterday's game. Let me find my notes here. One good thing is
chronological order.
Yeah, you got it right. One good thing about yesterday is I got an extra bag of potato chips from the press box. That's about the best food that they gave us, was a bag of potato chips. All right, let's go through the game yesterday. I got to look here. Let's see. The Bears had the ball first, and the Bears took a lead in yesterday's game. I mean, everything was looking okay.
The only thing that was bad about that opening drive was they didn't get a touchdown.
Correct.
I wanted to say, you had a big kickoff return by Cordero Patterson to open the game. They moved the ball down, but then the drive stalled, and they end up kicking a field goal. You want to see him finish the drive. Yeah,
that's what I wrote down. I said, Patterson, a good return, although shitty tackling by the Lions. And I figured, okay, here are the Lions. I mean, they're the Lions. I mean, they're a horseshit team and franchise. So that started off the way I thought it would. But then you're right. The drive fizzled. And then Santos kicked the field goal. And you know what, Greg? I tweeted out at that point, who would have thought that Caro Santos would be the most reliable player on this roster? He's converted 16 straight field goals.
And then he missed an extra point. So you shouldn't have.
I jinxed them.
I tell you what, that now just go back. That missed extra point. Now, granted, Detroit had one too.
Yeah.
That missed extra point was huge because on that final drive, and Chicago got themselves in position to score.
A field goal would have.
We're getting way ahead of ourselves. But Allen Robinson screwed up on that third down play. But they were in position. Had he made the extra point, to kick a field goal and tie the game going to overtime.
Yes, but as you
Every point count. The point I'm making is every point counts in the National Football League.
Of course it does, and to the bettors as well, by the way. But as soon as the Bears missed their extra point, so did the Lions. In fact, there were a lot of missed or botched extra points around the NFL yesterday. So who knows? I thought initially when they had that rule moving it back to be a 33-yard kick for the extra point, I thought that was sort of stupid. But in reality, it's probably been, a smart thing to do because it is made an effect strategy-wise and even betting-wise on a lot of the games around the league. Anyway, all right, so Detroit gets the ball after the Bears are up 3-0. Stafford, by the way, started out hot. He was 5 of 5 on that opening drive. Then on 4th and 1, what did I write down here? The Bears, Buster Screen. Okay, on 4th and 1, Detroit went for it, and that's actually Buster Screen, who made some major mistakes in yesterday's game. But in this instance, he came up with a nice tackle on that 4th and 1.
Yeah, I somebody said, great play, and I think Aldo tweeted out something, and I just said that might have been his best play of the year.
It probably was, and then it was all downhill after that. The Bears get the ball back; they're up 3-0. They hold Detroit. I mean, everything, at least initially, even though they didn't get a touchdown on their opening drive, is looking good. Let's see, Cordero Patterson. He actually had a couple of runs in the Bears' second possession that made him look like, okay, finally he was able to run the football.
For the whole game, Patterson had 10 carries for 59 yards. By far his best game as a running back for the Chicago Bears. And so in the last 2 years.
All right, David Montgomery on the second drive. And by the way, the Bears scored on their first 3 drives of yesterday's game and 4 of 5 in the first half. Montgomery gets into the end zone from 13 yards out. It was a nice run, but some shitty tackling by the Lions, and that's where they missed the extra point. So they're up 9-0. Then Detroit did move the ball down the field. Adrian Peterson scores on a 3-yard run. Peterson had a couple of touchdowns on the day. It wasn't really a high average per run. I think it was 3.5 yards per carry, but he got into the end zone twice. They botched the extra point, so it's 9-6 at this point. The Bears, again, on their third drive, like I said, 3 drives, 3 scores. Patterson into the end zone from 5 yards out. It's 16-6. In the first quarter, Greg, the Bears had 163 yards of offense. I was blown away by that. I don't know if I've seen that in years.
I agree. Everything in the first quarter, everything looked like, okay, this is going to be a Bears win. We're going to have a nice conversation today. I'm starting to write down little things about what we're going to talk about. I had to, rip it up and throw it out.
All right, let's see. The Lions then, it's 16-6 at this point after Patterson's touchdown and the extra point. The Lions come back, and it was back and forth in the first half. Stafford hits Quintez Cephas, a 49-yard pass. He beat Kyle Fuller, but Cephas actually used a stiff arm in that play. Do you recall that play?
He pushed off. Yep, I do it. He pushed off. They could have very easily called offensive pass interference on it, but hey, Fuller got beat. End of discussion.
Yeah, and it's a rarity because I can't remember when I said that Kyle Fuller got beat, but he actually got beat on that play.
Yep. All
right, the Bears again come back right before halftime. Montgomery scores on a 4-yard run, 23-13. And Greg, we had to look it up in the press box yesterday. When was the last time the Bears had 3 rushing touchdowns in a first half? It's been
1990.
That's right, 30 years. 30
they flashed
years.
It on TV.
Oh, did they?
Sorry,
okay. They must have been looking at all our notes because we looked that up yesterday ourselves. All right, so the Bears go into the locker room, 23-13 at the half. In the first half, and this was unusual, there was almost 500 yards of total offense by the two teams, 487 to be exact. And I'm thinking, wow, this is actually sort of fun to watch. But then, in the second half, Greg, the offense stalled for the most part before we get into specifics.
Hey, you want to see that? I mean, the Lions had the ball first, but the first time that the Bears had the ball, you want to see them go down and score again. Keep up the momentum they had in the first half. They didn't do it. Third quarter, I mean, the one drive where they scored, that was a carryover, from the third quarter into the fourth quarter. Right. That's the only time. They've still been totally dead when it comes to starting the second half on offense. And that was probably the most disappointing part of the Bears' offensive game yesterday.
Yeah. All right. So in that third quarter, the only touchdown is Stafford hitting Jesse James. I love that name. 9-yard touchdown pass, 23-20. The Bears do not score technically in the they didn't score in the third quarter. So out of 12 games, they've gone scoreless in 10 of 12 games in the third quarter, which is pretty amazing.
Pretty hard to do.
Yeah, it is pretty hard to do. 20, and by the way, one of those 2 touchdowns that they scored was a special teams touchdown. And that was, I think, when Patterson scored the kickoff return.
The opening kickoff of the second half.
Right. All right. So we go into the fourth quarter. You're right. The Bears did carry over from the third quarter. It was a drive, and Trubisky hits Cole Kmet. And I think Kmet at this point is now become the number 1 tight end. I don't think Jimmy Graham even caught a pass yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Had one target on that was probably the worst thrown ball that Mitch had yesterday. Down into the red zone area. That was probably 3 or 4 yards off target, maybe 5 yards off target. And I was thinking the same thing. He started off the season strong, but he's 34 years old, 35 years old. Are his legs dead? Because Jimmy Graham's been nowhere to be seen the last couple games where he was a big part of the offense. And you're right, Cole Kmet's coming on. He had 5 receptions for 37 yards. Now we're starting to see why they drafted him in the second round, but is it too little too late?
Maybe so. All right, so the Bears do score on the Cole Kmet 10-yard touchdown pass. It's 30-20 at this point. And then I thought maybe it should have been almost the icing on the game at this point. Stafford throws just a terrible pass. I guess it was like a swing pass, and Bilal Nichols picks it off. It was right in his breadbasket.
It was like, look what I found.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not supposed to be catching this, but
what is this thing? What's this strange brown thing they put in my hands there?
Anyway, so Nichols does come up with the turnover. I think that was the only turnover that the defense came up with yesterday. Anyway, let's hear from Bilal Nichols. Did he think that when he actually caught that pass, the interception from Stafford, did he think the game was over like most of us up in the press box did ourselves?
Second down. Stafford wants to screen, and it's intercepted. Picked off and down at the 46-yard line. Bilal Nichols with the interception.
You always got to play to the end of the fourth quarter. It's the NFL. They're great players too, so it's never over until the clock hits zeros. And that was my thought process. It's not over. We got to go out there and finish it, and we did.
You know who thought the game was over? Our good buddy Les Grabstein, because he's sitting next to me in the press box. He goes, "This game's over. I'm going home." So
did he go home?
Yeah, well, he went. Well, yeah, wherever he lives. I don't know, some reservation somewhere.
I'm sorry, I'm moving around a lot, but I can't. My knee is really.
That's
sore
okay.
This morning.
We know that.
I gotta, switch my position every couple minutes.
That's okay. Just keep the microphone away from your hoodie there, and
okay.
We're all gold. Anyway, all right. So it looked like the game was over, but unfortunately it wasn't. The Bears offense, honestly, they didn't do anything after that the rest of the game with about 9 minutes to go. The Lions do get the ball back after the Bears have to punt it. And, you think, okay, well, the Lions are down 30-20. There's about 6 minutes or 5 minutes. I don't even remember what was left in the game at that point.
And it's a hell of a punt too. They punt the ball down inside the 5-yard line.
Yeah, the special teams for the most part, they had a decent game yesterday, except for the botched extra point. All right, but to his credit, Stafford takes his team down the field in lickety-split time. He then hits Marvin Jones with a 25-yard pass with about 2, I think the time on the clock, well, actually I wrote it down.
Maybe 2:08 or something like that?
2:18 left on the clock. It's 30-27, okay? Still, if you take a look at Detroit, I think they had 2 timeouts left. The Bears got the ball. Now, I don't remember the kickoff, but I know the Bears were fairly deep in their territory. I don't know if they kicked it out of the end zone.
They were playing for an onside kick, and they had Mooney deep. Mooney caught it, and he was the only guy deep. So once you got past that group of players playing for the onside kick, that you had no blockers, it was a high short kick. He really had nowhere to go, and he gets tackled around the 15-yard line.
Okay,
I think he caught it around the 10.
Yeah, you're right about that. All right, let me ask you about that. Is Patterson in the game? Is he up front on a potential onside kick?
He was with the hands team up.
He was. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, well, why isn't he the guy that's further back there? But okay, fine. Anyway, all right. So you're still a little over 2 minutes to go. with any kind of offense, especially with a running attack, and they did have 140 yards on the ground overall, they should be able to run out the game. But no. What happens ultimately? They're facing a third down situation. It was 3rd and 4, and this is obviously the key play in yesterday's game. And Trubisky goes back to pass. Now, obviously, they were talking about that upstairs in the press box. Bill Lazor, I'm sure was in communication with Matt Nagy. What should we do in this situation? And they decide on 3rd and 4, we're going to throw the football. Greg, before we even talk about the play, you being a head coach or you being in charge here, what are you doing in that situation, considering all the different circumstances, the clock and the timeouts and everything else?
I don't fault having a pass play on that particular down. You got to get a first down. What are the chances of getting the first down on a run play? With 3rd and 4 in that situation, you're backed up around the 15-yard line. I think the pass play was the right call. Maybe the pass call, the passing play wasn't the right call, but calling a pass, I don't find a problem with that. If they run the ball, Detroit is forced into taking a timeout. They only have one timeout left. You get to kick the ball, and they've got to go the distance to score. But the last time they had the ball before that, they went 97 yards, just like that, and beat Johnson deep on about a 28, 29-yard pass for a touchdown. So it's like, you know what? No matter what the call is, you're wrong.
Okay, well, unfortunately, they're not successful on the play. Trubisky is stripped, and listen, overall, Trubisky had a pretty decent game yesterday. The numbers belie it. 26 of 34, 267 yards. He had 1 touchdown. He had a QB rating of 108.3. So, if you take a look at those numbers, pretty good. But it seemingly when things go wrong, Mitch Trubisky is always, unfortunately, in the middle of a bad play.
Up until that point, I thought it was the best game he's played in the last 2 years. In all honesty, he was getting rid of the ball a lot quicker. He was accurate with most of his throws. The throw to Graham, a few series earlier, that was way off. And then obviously the problem on this play was more Fetty than him, but still you can't take anything away from Romeo Okwara. He had a tremendous defensive play on that down.
All right, the offensive line obviously did not hold off Detroit, and Trubisky is strip sacked. And we're going to hear from Mitch here in just a second here. Back-to-back games where he fumbles deep in his own territory, giving the Packers first and now the Lions yesterday a chance. And boy, what a chance for the Lions to score the game-winning touchdown. Anyway, Trubisky was asked, why is ball security still such an issue with him?
Continue to be an issue. It was last week and this week. So I'm emphasizing ball security in practice. That's something I always do, protecting the ball and the football. I thought the guy made a good play. I was about to get ready to throw. I had one hand on the football, and he must have timed it perfectly. So I don't think it's an ongoing problem. I think you go back and watch the film, and sometimes the defensive players make good plays. So give them credit and move on. I think we still had a chance to win the game at the end, and that's all you can ask for. But we gotta play better in all 3 phases, and we gotta always continue to take care of the football. But I'm not dwelling on that.
All right. Well, listen, we're going to talk about that last drive in just a second here. But one of our listeners actually put something up on the screen here. I didn't catch his name. I thought it was a good point. Why don't the Bears in that situation roll out on that 3rd and 4, Greg? Roll him out, and then maybe, just maybe with his legs, he might be able to get the first down. And if he doesn't see a path for that, he can actually throw the ball away and not sit in the pocket and not rely on his offensive line to keep the Lions off his back. I think that's actually a good point on one of our listeners' parts.
Yeah, it's a good point, but at the same time, don't you think Detroit was thinking they might do the same thing too? They did. They did the drop back call. Don't forget, the coaches on both sides are usually pretty smart people. They have tendencies. And so if that's the case, if the Bears have done that before and they have a tendency to do that, then the defense is going to be prepared for it. So you want to do something that the defense isn't prepared for. That being said, the play didn't work. He got strip sacked. It put Detroit in position to score a touchdown, and they did. But still, Bears still had a chance to win that game.
Yeah, all right. First of all, Peterson gets into the end zone. I think it was on the second play. It was a 3-yard run. I mean, listen, they took over at the 7-yard line, so you knew they were going to score, and they did. All right, the Bears get one last shot, and they did move the ball down the field. There was a couple of nice passes, actually, by Trubisky. There was another, I think it was a defensive penalty on the Lions secondary. So the Bears get the ball down to Detroit's 29-yard line. There's 45 seconds left on the clock at this point. Here's the next sequence of plays. On first down, Trubisky hits Kmet on a 5-yard little short dump-off pattern. All right, so now you're 2nd and 5. The clock is running down, obviously. Trubisky throws an incomplete pass to Mooney. Now you're 3rd and 5.
They're going for the home run on that play, too, that incomplete pass. That was a deep pass towards the end zone.
Yes, correct. That is correct. Another, probably the second biggest play of the game upcoming here on 3rd down. Trubisky hits Robinson. Robinson only picks up 4 out of the 5 yards necessary.
Actually, where Robinson caught the ball, he had the first down. Then he comes back to try to get more, and it was a good play by the defensive man, but Robinson stepped out of bounds a yard and a half short of the first down marker. That's all on Robinson. He's got to, that was totally on him on that play. Without that play, the Bears lived to make another play. You go to the next play where they called a run play instead of a pass. I actually don't have a problem with that play because you think that Detroit's thinking pass, and the defensive lineman got penetration. He made a hell of a play on that, and he ends up being about 1.5 feet short.
Well, Robinson going out of bounds, it's not exactly apples and apples here, but it sort of reminded me, and I'm sure you'll remember this game, Greg. I think you were still employed by the Bears at this point. When Marion Barber, remember when he ran out of bounds in Denver?
Marion Barber ran out of bounds, and that was in Atlanta.
No, it was in Denver.
Okay, I thought you were talking about where they come. No, what? Because he ran out of bounds in Atlanta too, and it was the rookie year, Atlanta's quarterback rookie year, and they went down the field in like 15 seconds to kick a field goal and beat us. Do you remember that?
Well, I do. No, I remember Denver kicking a long field goal and winning because I was out in Denver for that game, and I do remember Marion Barber running out of bounds. Anyway, again, it's not apples and apples here, but it sort of conjured up a bad memory for me. Robinson's been obviously their MVP on offense all season long, along with their kicker, of course. But unfortunately, he goes out of bounds on that play that does set up the 4th and short. And Montgomery is stuffed at the line of scrimmage. And I was listening to some of the post games in my car yesterday, and gosh, who was it? It was who's on BBM after the game yesterday? It's Jay Hilgenberg, I think.
Jay.
And Hilge, they said, well, would you have run the ball in that situation? He goes 101 out of 100 times. If we can't get a half a yard, of which all we need, then we're not worth anything. And that sort of answered the question. Unfortunately, that offensive line, which for the most part yesterday had more than a decent game. Like I said, the second highest rushing total on the season with 140 yards. They just could not get that 1 yard when they needed it most, and that was the ball game. And they lost the game.
One bad block, and the defensive lineman got penetration, and he's the guy who made the play. In fact, the rest of the line blocked pretty good on that play.
Yeah, there was a lot of people, and you watch the offensive line a lot more than I do, but a lot of people were, let's see, I'm trying to figure out here on the offensive line. I don't know. Did Massey have who was good and who was not good in yesterday's game? You told me.
I got to go through the whole game again to really answer that question honestly, where I used the end zone tape from the All-22, and that's how you grade offensive linemen. You got to see that end zone tape, and then you go back and forth with it. I haven't had time to do that, being it's only 11 o'clock.
Okay, I started to say Massey, but it wasn't Massey. I think they were all racking. Fetty missed a block. I think Fetty was the one who missed the block on the strip sack, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
but a lot of people were ragging on Leno.
He opened up. Well, Leno got beat real bad on a sack too, where he went way too wide with a set, and the defensive end came back inside. Crossed over his face, came back inside, and got the sack.
All right, so bottom line is they had a big lead. They had a 10-point lead with, a little over 2 minutes to go, and they lose the game. So I remember tweeting myself, yes, you really just saw what you just saw, where a 10-point lead evaporated into a 4-point disadvantage about as quick as, lickety-split time.
Well, I'm sure you were at the game where we were down 14 with 29 seconds left against Cleveland and won.
Which game was that?
That was the last year at the old Soldier Field. Mike Brown had 2 touchdowns in the last.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, I was at that game. Unfortunately, my senility sometimes makes me forget certain things. That's why I have Grobstein sitting next to me, because he's good for remembering things from 10, 20, 30, 50 years ago.
Yeah, but he can't remember yesterday. That's the problem.
Well, he doesn't know about today. That's his problem, really. I mean, all he can do is remember yesterday. Speaking of yesterday, let's go through it. I mean, before we even go through that, actually, where do we go from here, Greg? I mean, 5-7. I think.
Well, number one, you're going to win your bet.
Okay, yeah, you would have to win out. And by the way,
I do not think they're going to win another game right now.
Ooh, you think they're going to end okay? So if they end the season on a 10-game losing streak and go from 5-1 to 5-11, you absolutely have to clean house, do you not? Yes, you do. I'll answer my own question.
Okay.
I mean, come on, seriously. If this team loses the last 10 games,
well, look at who they're playing.
I don't care who they're playing.
Jacksonville got a chat. Houston's playing decent football. That's this week. We made the mistake of thinking Jacksonville was.
You're right. I was
Houston's
wrong about
coming up. Dome team from the South coming up is going to be in the high 20s or something. Okay, I remember thinking we played Houston in a game that I thought the same thing in December. They kicked the shit out of us. So. That cold weather from a dome team coming up, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But Houston's been playing pretty good football, and now you got to go against Deshaun Watson, who can air the ball out pretty damn good. And especially if he throws for about 300, 350, everybody's going to be hooting and hollering because he should be wearing a Bears uniform instead of a Houston uniform. I'm going to say this, and I thought about it yesterday right after the game. It's a good thing there's no fans in the stands right now.
Well, yeah, it's a great thing because I'm able to get out of Soldier Field pretty quick. That's
not just that. I mean, it would be unbearable for those players. You blow a 10-point lead in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, they're used to it. All right. By the way, if anybody's got some questions for Greg and or myself, but specifically Greg, Aldo will put them up on the screen and Greg will answer them as we get to the tail end of this podcast. But let's go through the rest of the NFL yesterday. Green Bay wins again, 30-16 over Philadelphia. Obviously, the Eagles are just horseshit overall. But the thing that stands out in this game, Greg, Aaron Rodgers, I don't know. Is he the MVP of this league, or is Mahomes the MVP of this league? There's a lot of conjecture.
One or the other, because Russell Wilson,
he's fallen off.
He was the lead horse, but he's dying coming down the stretch.
Yeah, he has fallen off. Anyway, Rodgers 3 touchdown passes yesterday. He's the fastest to 400 touchdown passes in anybody's career. So kudos to him. Minnesota,
and he didn't play his first 3 years.
That's correct. He was a backup. You're right. Minnesota, again, we left them for dead about 6 weeks ago, but now they've gone 5-1 over the last 6 weeks. They win in Jacksonville 27-24. Kirk Cousins with 3 touchdown passes yesterday. And once again, I hate to say this, if you take all the quarterbacks in the Central Division, you got Rodgers, you got Cousins, you got Stafford, and you got either Trubisky or Foles. Once again, the Bears have the worst of the quarterbacks in their own division.
No question.
Which is unfortunate. New Orleans, I don't know how they keep winning, but they keep winning. That's 9 in a row, 21-16 over Atlanta. The game of the day yesterday, as we talked about in advance, talk about a tale of two halves. Cleveland, they win over Tennessee 41-35. Baker Mayfield with 4 touchdown passes. Cleveland was up 38-7 at the half. 38-7. And they hung on. I mean, a tale of two halves.
And I'll tell you what, there was an onside kick being recovered. You have that. Did they kick the onside kick? That gets recovered, and Tennessee's got a chance to tie that game.
Let me ask you this, Greg. I'm going to be honest with you. Right now, I'm brain dead. Who's Cleveland's head coach?
I can't remember his name. It was Minnesota's offensive coordinator last year.
Who's going to be the coach of the year in the AFC? And it's going to be in that division, by the way.
That guy.
Okay, well, what happens if Tomlin goes undefeated, 16-0?
Well, if Pittsburgh goes undefeated, Tomlin's got to be.
Okay, you know what it might boil down to, honestly? I think they play each other in the last game of the season for coach of the year on top of everything else. If Cleveland is able to win that game and maybe knock off Pittsburgh from an undefeated season, and Pittsburgh's got a couple of other games before that, obviously.
By the way, his name is Stefanski.
Okay.
Kevin Stefanski.
All right. Well, kudos to him. Right now, I think he's the coach of the year. Let's see. Was Andy Reid the coach of the year last year?
Yes.
Okay. Well, he's not going to win it this year, but his team is still, to me, even though they had a pedestrian game last night, they beat Denver 22-16. They're still, to me, the best team in the NFL, although their defense at times is pretty questionable.
No, that's what could get them beat come the playoffs. Is the offense is great, but the defense is marginal right now. And if you can have a game plan where you can control the ball and keep the ball away from Mahomes, you got a chance to beat them.
Kansas City's got some tough games upcoming on its schedule. Miami wins again. They're 8-4 after beating Cincinnati 19-7. The Vegas Jets game. I mean, as bad as the Bears have been, the Jets keep topping the Bears no matter how bad and funny. I mean, come on, an all-out blitz on the last play,
I didn't see it. I just heard about it. But Greg Williams got fired already. This morning.
He did. Greg Williams did get fired this morning. Derek Carr throws a touchdown pass. It's a 46-yarder with 5 seconds left. The Jets fall to 0-12. Come on, the Jets are help me out, Greg, because you talk about stupidity. Why, when the only thing that can beat you is a touchdown, are you coming with an all-out blitz instead of having like 8 guys back in the secondary?
Who knows?
I mean,
it wouldn't shock me. Okay, here's my conspiracy theory. I'll be the cynic today instead of you. Gase is telling them the other team better win. We got to get that quarterback.
Trevor Lawrence is going to pull. Who was it? Elway? Yeah, Elway was originally drafted. What was it by?
Baltimore.
By Baltimore. He said,
now Indianapolis.
Right. All right. Speaking of Indianapolis, they beat Houston 26-20. As we mentioned, the Texans are here this coming Sunday. The Rams beat Arizona. You were right about Arizona. They're just fading into the sunset. The Rams win at 38-28. The Giants, as we talked about early in the podcast, they beat Seattle 17-12. That's one of the worst losses that Seattle's had in a long time. And speaking of terrible losses, New England, 45-0 over your LA Chargers. What the F is going on with that team?
I don't know. And there's talk now that the Chargers coach is going to get canned this week. And you know what? He deserves it, but I got a good friend who's the quarterback coach there. And his name keeps popping up as a head coach, and he should be. He'll get interviewed a lot this coming off season when the different coaching changes are available.
All right, well, maybe Matt Forte will rip the LA Chargers, and maybe their owner will do something out there as opposed to Mrs. McCaskey doing anything here. All right, real quickly, college football, Ohio State and Northwestern. It's likely Ohio State and Northwestern in the Big Ten title game, but it's really interesting, Greg, and there's a lot of machinations here. Ohio State still has to play one more game to get in, and Michigan, has had a lot of COVID problems. They could call off the game and put Ohio State in a bind here.
Well, supposedly Ohio State has been trying to, in the background,
have another game with Maryland.
Schedule another game just in case that happens.
Right.
So they have enough games to get into the title game. This is going to be a weird situation. Personally, I don't think Michigan wants to play Ohio State because they might get beat by about 75. But how about this? There's stuff. There was word. I do some stuff for a Notre Dame website periodically, and there was word last year that supposedly Harbaugh already has an extension with Michigan in hand. I can't believe it, but that was the word, towards the end of the week. And then yesterday, our good buddy Mike Florio on Pro Football Talk said, well, he's trying to work his way back into the NFL. Who the hell wants Harbaugh to be a coach in the NFL right now?
Nobody.
That's right. I mean, He just wears on you.
Yeah.
He wears on everybody in the organization. And, so when I saw that, I tweeted out, I said, that sounds like an agent doing some wishful thinking. But like I said, supposedly he's got an extension in hand from Michigan. I don't know why Michigan will want to extend him.
Well, remember early in this podcast, you said the Bears are going to win, and you had all your notes, and you crumpled it up and you threw it in the waste paper basket. If they have an extension already for Harbaugh, they should crumple that up and throw it in the waste paper basket.
Yeah, what if he's already signed it?
I don't know. It never happened.
I know.
Politicians and people in sports lie all the time, by the way. Indiana.
They do?
Oh, yes, they do. Indiana is going to go to a nice bowl game, and they've had a great season.
Yes, they have.
Agree with that.
I'd like to see Indiana in the Big Ten title team, and they lose their quarterback Pennick to an ACL injury last week, and they come back with the backup and still play good this year. Them and Northwestern are the two best coached teams in the Big Ten. They don't have the talent, but boy, those teams are well coached.
All right, let me ask you about a couple of title games. Florida and Alabama will be in the Southeast title game, and I'm looking forward to that one. But I want to ask you specifically, Kyle Trask for Florida. He's had a great season, but I'm going to ask you, as a scout, what do you think of him? He's got 3,243 yards. He's got 38 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. He's a big dude. He's built like a linebacker. He's 6'5", 240 pounds. What's your scouting report on this guy? Because
I don't have one because I haven't studied him yet.
Well,
I'm going to when the time comes. When first of all, you got to find out who's going to be in the draft and who's not in the draft, because I'm not going to waste my time studying guys that aren't going to be in the draft.
I think, underline, I'm not sure about this, I think he'll be eligible to be in the draft. Listen, the Bears are going to need a quarterback. I don't care what anybody says.
That's right, and it's not, from what I understand, from what people tell me, it's now not really. Yeah, there's Trevor Lawrence, but there's not really a great quarterback class this year. That doesn't mean there's not going to be a good quarterback that you can get in the second round. Turns out to be a great one. I'm just saying that what people are saying is not as good of a year as the past few years have been as far as top quarterbacks. There'll still be four or five going to first round every year there is.
Kyle Trask, as Aldo is putting up on the screen here, is a senior. So I'm going to ask you, please scout him before next week because I want to get your opinion on him. The other big conference title game will be Notre Dame and Clemson.
You pay me extra to do that.
It's on Aldo's. That's on Aldo. I'll just leave it.
Aldo,
at that.
You're paying me extra to do that.
Aldo's gone dark here on the screen. Anyway, all right. So Notre Dame and Clemson will be in 2 weeks, actually, in the ACC title game. It's a rematch. Lawrence didn't play in that first game at South Bend. Do you anticipate the same result or maybe something different?
Well, I think that's going to be a hell of a game. And as good as Trevor Lawrence is, that freshman quarterback, and who knows how to say his last name, that guy's great. He's going to end up being a first pick in the draft. The way he played when he got that opportunity to play. It's going to be a heck of a football game. Clemson will be healthier in that game than they were for the first game, I think. And it's just about a home game for Clemson. I mean, it's an hour and a half, 2-hour drive from Clemson, South Carolina up to Charlotte. So,
right.
I think that turns the table a little bit too. So I think Clemson will probably win the game. But I think if it's a close game, both teams will be in the playoff.
I would agree with that. All right. What about Ian Book, who now has the record for most wins by a quarterback in Notre Dame history, and that's saying a lot, by the way, 30 wins. He's undersized, Greg. He's a winner, but, what's his future?
Well, I'd say this. The guy I compare him to in college is Drew Brees. Now, I'm not saying Drew Brees now. I'm saying in college. And actually, he's got a better arm than Drew Brees had in college. I went to scout Drew Brees at Purdue, and I went on a windy day, and he could not complete a 12 or 13-yard out in that wind. He was short every single time in that practice. Just didn't have the arm strength. And I remember writing in my report, he's either got to play in a good weather city or a dome city, or he's going to struggle. Where'd he go? He went to San Diego first, and now he's with a dome team in New Orleans, but his arms gotten stronger. Their arms always get stronger once they get to the NFL because they do certain exercises to increase their arm strength. But I'll tell you what, Book does not have the talent of a Trevor Lawrence or any of those guys. He's 6 feet tall, very, very mobile. He doesn't make mistakes. He very seldom turns the ball over. He's going to end up being maybe a day 2, probably an early day 3 pick. He's going to be a backup in the league. and it wouldn't shock me if he becomes a winning starter in the league, because that's all that guy does is win. 30 wins he's got as a college player, and that's just an incredible stat.
Yeah, he's the kind of player that I think Ryan Pace would trade up in the first round to go after.
Oh, yeah, probably take him with the 5th pick overall.
Right, exactly. All right, one last thing here. We talked about pros, we talked about college. Did you see the play in this high school playoff game where the kid body slammed the referee? Did you see that?
No,
video?
I heard about it, though. That kid should be charged with assault.
I think he will be. I think he finally was arrested. I think I saw a mugshot of him. I don't see this kid ever playing football ever again. I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm not so sure he ever should.
No, I agree with you. That was terrible.
You know, when you get a chance, go on YouTube or something, take a look at the video. The kid initially, if I recall, was flagged for not only unsportsmanlike but roughing the quarterback. He was kicked out of the game. I do believe he's on the sidelines, and as the referee is announcing the penalties, the kid runs on the field from behind. Matter of fact, we're going to see it right here on the screen for those. We're seeing a commercial first.
Come on, we'll get through that commercial.
It'll be coming up here in just a second, but you'll see he's standing on the sideline, and the referee has his back to the kid making the call, and then all of a sudden the kid comes up and he really hits him from behind with his shoulder and knocks the official down on the ground. They called it a body slam, but it was really more than a body slam. He basically just, I don't know, sort of knocked him from behind and knocked him on the ground. It was just I'm sure you can see this right now. There it is, Greg.
Yeah.
There it is. I mean, it's just an awful play. And, you do something as egregious as that, I don't think you should ever play football ever again. You just cannot do that.
No, I agree, except I think he will play football again. He'll end up at Last Chance U or someplace like that, and he'll be playing. But if he gets out of jail, because you're going to get charged with assault for that. That was awful.
Yeah, it was. All right, anyway, that'll wrap it up, Greg. Awful, it basically sums up what the Bears were yesterday and have been for the last 6 weeks. Matt Nagy is still the Bears head coach. There was no firing, no dismissal by the Bears up at Hallis Hall today. And so it's onward and upward. Well, at least it's onward to the game upcoming against Houston. And we'll be back on Thursday at some juncture to preview that game, Greg.
Well, I hope we can get through that, and I hope we have a win next week, but I'm not counting on it.
Well, we were both wrong because we both picked the Bears to win yesterday.
And we both we both said low scoring.
Yeah, we were both wrong across the board.
I think we should get fired.
Aldo? There's Aldo.
You going to take some questions?
Oh, yes, we're going to take some questions. I'm sorry. I forgot all about those. So, all right, here's from King Zing. I'm sorry, Greg. First question, who is the quarterback for the Bears next year? I have no idea.
I have no idea. Who the hell? Who knows?
I mean, Foles will still be on the roster. He signed a 2-year deal, so he'll be in some capacity. He can't be the starting quarterback.
Mitch Trubisky's out of contract, so you either got to give him a new contract or
that's not going to happen.
Yeah, or he's off in free agency.
Okay, and like I said, Nick Foles will be back because he's got a second year on that deal. Here's one from Ryan Bueller. He says, I'd like whatever Greg is smoking to think Pace and Nagy deserve another year of employment in Chicago. I don't think you said that, Greg.
Did I ever say they deserved it?
No.
I said it's just I think they will get another year because I generally know how management thinks there. They got 2 years. I think they got 2 years left on their contract, and I think they're going to get another year. I have never once said
that they
deserve another year.
Right. Okay, here's one from Roy. Roy is asking, why does Chuck Pagano get a pass? He continues to rush 3 and put the defense in horrible positions.
I think we've been calling out the defense for the last 2 weeks. Why are we giving them a pass? We're not.
No, we're not. And again, what did they give up yesterday? They gave up 460 yards of total offense. So
to a shitty quarterback.
Yeah, so Chuck Pagano's not getting a pass from us. Are there any other, Aldo? If not... No. Aldo writes on the screen, no. That's it for the questions, Greg. So, again, I will say adieu to you, and we will reconvene on Thursday. We'll preview the next game.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, take care.
Talk to you later.
Thank you.